In addition to assigning an IP version 4 address to an interface, we also need to be able to assign an IP version 6 address to an interface. Before we do that though, let's make sure that IP version 6 routing, unicast routing, is enabled on this router. It may not be by default. Let's say IPv6 space unicast routing. And one of the cool things about IP version 6 when it comes to the verification or the show commands, the commands are almost identical to the IP version 4 commands we have. Remember with IP version 4 we could do a show IP interface brief? Well, to see the IP version 6 equivalent of that, instead of saying IP, we say IPv6. Let's say show IPv6 interface brief. And we can see that we don't have any IP version 6 addresses assigned right now. And let's go into interface Fast Ethernet 0/0, and before I even statically configure an IP address, I want to show you something that I think is really interesting. I can just enable IP version 6 on this interface, and just by doing that, this interface is going to have a link local address. Let's enter IPv6 enable. Just by doing that, we have a link local address. I'll prove it to you. Let's do show IPv6. Instead of IP, show IPv6 interface Fast Ethernet 0/0. And check this out. We have a dynamically created link local address. And we've already discussed how the MAC address of this interface was used to construct that link local address, but I just think it's really interesting that even without me assigning an IP version 6 address to this interface, it's still able to communicate with a neighbor over this local link. Also notice that we've already joined a couple of IP version 6 multicast groups. Do you recall that FF02::1 is the all nodes IPv6 multicast group address? FF02::2, that's the all routers IPv6 multicast group address. And by the way, we do not have to enter that IPv6 enable command. In fact, I'll get rid of it. Let's go back into interface Fast Ethernet 0/0, and I'll say no IPv6 enable. That was just a side note to show you that we could get a link local address without even assigning a unicast IPv6 address. But let's do that now. Let's say IPv6 space address, and I'm going to give a unicast IP version 6 address for this interface. Let's make it 2000:4. And here's something different than when we configured IP version 4 addresses for an interface. We were not able to use the slash notation for IP version 4 addresses. We can here. Let's do /64. We're saying the first 64 bits of this 128-bit address represent the network. The last 64 bits represent the host. Let's enter that. The interface is already administratively up. We should now be able to see the link local address as well as this unicast address by reissuing the command show IPv6 interface Fast Ethernet 0/0. Here is our link local address again. In addition to that, we've got our global unicast address, and we also see our two multicast group addresses. We could also see IP address information by doing a show IPv6 interface brief. We can see for Fast Ethernet 0/0, we have this link local address and this global unicast address that we've configured. Let's talk about banners on our Cisco IOS router. Remember back on a Cisco Catalyst switch we had a couple of types of banners. We had a login banner and a message of the day banner. Same thing here. Let's review a bit. Let's go in to global configuration mode and let's create a login banner. I'll say banner login. And context sensitive help shows us that we have to give some sort of a delimiting character. In other words, I say, when you see this character again, you'll know that I'm done entering my banner. I'm going to use a $sign. That's not going to appear in my message. In fact, just so we can tell the difference between the login banner and the message of the day, I'm going to say this is the login banner, and I'll give a $sign to say that I'm done. Now let's create a message of the day banner. I'll say banner MOTD for message of the day. Again, we give a delimiting character. I'll use a $sign again, and I'll say this is the MOTD banner, enter, and another $sign to say that I'm done. We've now created two banners, and I'm going to log out. And let's exit all the way out. Currently, I'm not requiring a password to get into the console. All I have to do is press enter and I'm connected to the console. And as a result, because I did not have to log in, notice this. I only see one of my two banners. This is the message of the day banner. I did not see my login banner. We can make that login banner show up though by requiring a login. Let's go into line configuration mode for our console line, and I'll set a password of Cisco and say that we want to require a login. Now when I log out and press enter, we see both banners, the message of the day banner and the login banner. The reason we see the login banner this time is a password is being required. And now I'm logged in. And remember that it's a good practice to be careful with your wording on your banners. If you say something like, "Welcome to router R1," that could be used against you if you have some malicious user trying to hack their way into that router. If you catch them, they could say, "Well, the banner said I was welcome." So just be careful with your wording. You might want to say something like, "Unauthorized access is prohibited." You might want to work with your legal department in your company to come up with appropriate wording. But I wanted to show you the distinction between the login banner and the message of the day banner.